Thank you very much for coming out in the holiday season to attend a WinHUGR meeting. I really appreciate seeing a good crowd out tonight. We have an agenda here of 6:15 start, a few announcements from me. Then we are going to have our main speaker tonight, Pell. And we have a holiday surprise for you guys. And then, of course, we have our regular door prizes, which are always cool as well. And refreshments, demos, and interaction at the end. 8 p.m. end to the meeting, and we have to be out of the facilities for sure by 9. So, first thing I want to mention to the crowd, if anybody in the crowd is thinking about authoring a book on HoloLens and doesn't have a publisher, but does maybe have some experience or a good idea or whatever it is, and you're serious about doing a book, I might have somebody that you should talk to. So come and connect with me offline. One of the publishers, I've been dealing with a lot of different publishers from sponsorship perspective, and because of the nature of our group, I've been approached by one of them that's looking. Mike, is that you?
Oh, maybe.
Can you just?
You don't like me buzzing?
Thanks, Mike. At any rate, please come talk to me if you are seriously thinking about putting together a book. Since we met last, there's been a ton of things that have been happening. It's like the whole industry is on high speed right now. Here are a couple of bullet points on things that I think are relevant specifically to the group that if you hadn't heard, I just want to make sure that you get a chance to hear. HoloLens Commander is added to the companion toolkit. What this is basically is a multi-user dev portal to allow you to control multiple devices in kind of a classroom scenario. They were using it for the Holo Academy, and they've now put it out into the companion kit. So if you have that kind of scenario or use case in your business or fun stuff that you're working on, you might want to check that out. Unity 5.5 was released, as probably many of you know. It now has HoloLens support. So no longer do we need to work off of the technical preview. Mike, is that you? Okay, then it must be something else. Sorry. No longer do we have to work off the technical preview. We can now go into the main branch of Unity. There's a bit of a transition over there if you've been working off the HoloLens HTTP, that some of the Holo Toolkit tools were migrated over at the same time. So you may have to do some rework if you've got some dependencies on the Holo Toolkit, which most of us do. It will be fairly seamless, but there might be a couple of bumps, especially with audio, right, Dave? Dave, I see Dave somewhere. There. So if you're doing spatial audio, double check. It's posted in the forums. Dave did a great job of explaining some of that information there. One of the really cool things about Unity's latest release is the 5.6 beta got released, I think it was yesterday. And one of the, number of awesome cool things there for us, but probably the most interesting is the new video player, which also supports 360 and 4K video. So if you've been having any interest in putting video into your HoloLens app and was worried about the performance and other issues, check out the 5.6 beta. It's fresh and just out of alpha, so be prepared to be playing in some soft ground there. Holo Toolkit was updated, as I mentioned, for 5.5. Build 2017 was announced a week or two ago, and it's going to be in Seattle this year. It's going to happen on May 10th to 12th. I don't have any insight as to what the HoloLens content is going to be at Build this year, but I would be hopeful that we're going to see some cool stuff. As a group, we're also exploring what types of possibilities, since they're going to be in town and it falls on one of our normal meeting nights, we're exploring what we might be able to do that's interesting in conjunction with Build. So if you have ideas there or connections, might be something you want to also connect with me offline. WinHUGR, the OEM update, happened this month as well. And I'll flip to this next slide here just to give you a visual to get a sense as to why this is important. Microsoft spoke to the OEMs in the East. I can't remember was it in China? China, some place this year. This is a good representation of the types of devices you're going to see potentially coming out in the spring. This is a really telling diagram where on the matrix, they talk about these 4 aspects and devices in each quadrant of the matrix. So portable, tethered, so tethered and untethered, and see-through and not see-through. So VR, full MR, MR all around. There's going to be a whole host of devices coming out in the 2017 that are going to work on the holographic platform. So all of the early work that you've been doing in this space is going to pay off big time. One other cool thing that's coming up in 2017 is we've got Robert Scoble. Some of you guys probably know him personally. He worked here for a while on campus. He's been in the industry for quite a while and is well known for his blog. Robert Scoble and Shell Israel have put out a book, and they're doing a tour cross-country for their book release. We have them booked for our February meeting, so something to look forward to in the new year as well. Should be very interesting to hear him. Robert tends to be a fairly dynamic and controversial speaker at times. With that out of the way, I'm going to ask Mike come up. Mike is in charge of the design. He's the design lead for the garage at Microsoft, and the garage is kind of a innovative internal space that Microsoft does a lot of interesting skunkworks type of work in. I'll let Mike tell you the rest, and please welcome Mike Pell to the stage.
Sorry, I need to make a dramatic entrance. That was pretty great, wasn't it? Yeah. All right, we're testing out this new lavalier, so maybe it might be a little loud. You guys tell me, is that better? Too much? It's okay? Buzzy? I'm buzzy? Okay, thank you, Dwayne. So first of all, thank you very much for showing up tonight. I always learn a lot when I come to WinHUGR meetings. This is about the 4th one that I've come to. So as Dwayne said, my name is Mike Pell. I'm a designer and a coder and a whole bunch of other things. But my favorite job of all is being a mixed reality Envisioneer. So I wanted to talk to you today about what I do and how that might help you in some of the stuff that you may be doing. I'll tell you that I'm not part of the Hololens team. I am part of Microsoft, but the garage is about experiments and just sort of trying things, and our motto is doers, not talkers. So we like to get our hands dirty. We like to just try things out and see how far we can go. And so what I've learned is just to try things. It's just to get in and like really dig stuff up. I'm bugging myself with my is that okay? Okay. And so what I want to do is just sort of share a few things with you that I've learned about envisioning, how to envision for the holographic experience. And so that's a little bit different than some of the talks that, I don't know, like you guys must have been here for some of the previous talks. There's a fantastic talk on how to use sound, fantastic talk about how to write shaders. So I'm not going to talk about any of that, right? I'm not the best hacker, I'm not the best designer, but I know how to do things very quickly, how to do rapid prototyping. And part of my process is figuring out what to do. So I'm just kind of curious, are there any designers here? Yes, thank you. See, we're always outnumbered, so we got to stick together, right? Okay, so you guys like back me up, okay? When everybody's going, no, Mike, you'll know what I'm talking about. So really, when you think about any kind of project that has to do with holographic imagery, or a holographic experience, or a game, or something for the enterprise, or something that nobody's even thought of before, you probably have something flash into your mind, right? And for me, this happens quite a bit, like being a designer, like being creative. I walk around and I drive places, I fly places, and I sort of, this was in Seattle, there was a fantastic art exhibit not too long ago, and I see empty spaces, and I imagine what could go into those spaces. Does that ever happen with you? So I'm not getting electrocuted. I just thought like maybe you guys were. No, really, does this ever happen with any of you? Yeah, it's like you see a scene, you're like, I wonder what could fill that space. That happens all the time with me. And so I've learned how to sort of, I guess, put that to good use. And so the very first thing that I'd like you to think about is, when you do get a chance to think about maybe your next project or to think about how to finish up what you're doing right now, think about how to fill the space with something that nobody has ever seen before. I mean, I think that there's a place in the world for doing something a little bit better or to maybe take a different approach to something that we've seen before. But I like to think that this platform, like there was a great talk about 3 or 4 months ago, one of the devs from Microsoft who worked on the analog team was talking about how this is like a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to figure out a whole new way to do anything, something. You know, so I think it's exciting for us to sort of figure out, like, how do we figure this out together? And for me, I'm an information designer primarily, and so I always like to get to the point. And so if you had to leave right now, this is the most important thing about my talk, right? It always comes down to people. It's not about technology ever. It's not about making money ever. It's not about trying to impress your friends. Actually, I take it back. It kind of is about impressing your friends. But again, it's about how do I do something for someone, right? For you, for your family, for your friends, for people you don't even know. It all comes down to the people part. So we're going to get into why that's important in Envisioning. So I've been fooling around with Hololens for quite a while, and I always have fun. I always like find something new. I wish they would do this. I really wish I could figure out how to do that. But there's always something, and I think that this sort of exploring feeling is very important because we're sort of like all, I guess you could say, like maybe holonauts. So in the garage, we're very fond of just trying stuff out, right? Like the garage is a very fun part of Microsoft to be in if you can't tell. And so in the garage, we do hackathons quite a bit. We pull out their ordinary way of doing things. And part of that sort of mojo is like, we don't get to do this, right? Like if you notice the guy on the right, Alex Kipman, right? Awesome. I don't know, that looks like the vomit comet, right? You guys know what that is? So you get to 0G. So that is pretty awesome. And I think that's Jeff Norris on the left from JPL. So they have a pretty fun job. I have a pretty fun job, not quite that fun. But I do get to sort of feel like, I think all of us are sort of what I call holonauts, right? We're explorers. We're figuring stuff out. This has not been done before. Like nobody has figured out how to do this. And certainly, I think everybody, especially in this space, I'm going to stay over here. We're all designers, right? Whether you write words, whether you write code, whether you design, whether you figure out how to get the money to fund the project, you're all designing in your own way. And the experience part is really the key. So again, like when you look at this, what do you see? Like, I want this to be interactive, like really, just like blurt stuff out, I don't care. It could be totally wrong. What do you see? Anybody? Okay, you could say like blank wall. Blank wall is a good answer. Okay, well, what I see is a new frontier, right? How do you fill this space with something so unbelievably compelling that people don't want to leave, right? They don't want to take off the rig. They don't want to move on to whatever it is that they were doing before. When I look at this, I also see that there's a completely new language, right? A completely new interaction language for the experience that we have to figure out. And people are doing fantastic work. I love sort of playing around with new things that show up in the store. But I think that there's a place for all of us to just sort of help move this new language forward, whether it's a visual language, an interaction language, like how we deal with each other in public space sort of language, right? So like we've been through that before. And it requires, as you know very well, a completely new mindset. And part of this new mindset is, how do I get myself in a frame of mind or like how do I approach these problems? And I presume because you're all here, you're either working on holographic stuff or you want to. Is that a fair assumption? Okay. So did you find that you like really had to sort of rethink how you go about doing this? It's like, I'll take an example from my world. A regular UI designer, right, user interface designer, can't just take their skills from the 2D world or even the 3D world of doing like modeling for animation or games and completely port it over and just have it be the perfect solution. It doesn't work that way. You have to learn, right? You have to fail, you have to experiment. So sort of at the end of the day, I sort of saw something like that. I don't know why, don't ask me why. It's like some fun dancing hologram. So that's just sort of my, I guess, my curse perhaps, is that I see things everywhere. And so when I travel, Like this was, I was walking down a hallway at the Stanford VR lab, so in Stanford, California, and I just sort of looked up, you know, just like here, like I looked up, I saw this, I don't know what that is, it's like a fire light, emergency light, but what did I see? Robot, right? Robot, right? 2 eyes, mouth, right? Really like spooky kind of lighting. Okay, so do you see things like that? If you don't, you should. You should look for things like that. Because the real world, like many people, I'm not the first person to say this, like everybody who's ever worked on HoloLens will tell you the same thing. The real world is really your inspiration, right? The real world is where a lot of the things, like a lot of the answers that you're searching for will come from. And I know like it sounds weird, because this is Mike, you just told us. This is like a whole new platform, it's a new experience, it's like a whole new thing, we're like making this all up. We are, but it turns out that the inspiration you get from the real world, from that chair, from the microphone, like from looking at these lights, that's where a lot of your answers will come from, trust me. Trust me when I tell you that. So I was waiting for, I don't know, it's like in a doctor's office. I was just sort of sitting there, like looking at this, and I thought to myself, it's kind of weird that turtle's just kind of swimming around. You know, it's like, you know, like we've all seen the whatever the whale comes out of the gym floor, right? You know, there's a lot of interesting stuff that can happen when you're in public spaces. So I got really fascinated with envisioning, right? Trying to think of how can I bring things to life and not only just sort of draw a picture or like model something or like code up a prototype, but how can I get it to feel real? How can I get people to understand what I'm going for? And you know, as you walk around, I think I was in SeaTac the other day, architecture, right? So architects and engineers use this visual language, you know, and they have for decades or longer, of sort of ghosting people, right? Remember, like people are really important. You can't come up with any kind of holographic experience and forget about the people, right? So you have to have a way to inject people into the scene. So I thought, oh, okay, this is great. So I can take a lot of these ideas I've had, and this gives me a well-established visual language to be able to sort of tell a story about like how the people fit in or don't fit in or what we need to do. And so I was like walking around one night, and this is, I think, a hotel in Bellevue. And again, like same thing happened to me, right? I'm like walking around, I'm like, oh, like, look at that empty space. What would be filling that? And so it was night. I think it was like summertime. I thought, how come like nobody's hanging out in this hotel lobby, like, you know, listening to music or like having a good time? It's like kind of desolate. Like, wouldn't it be better if there was people? You know, like, wouldn't it be better if there was like something cool going on? And then I thought to myself, it would be really great if people who didn't have a HoloLens, you know, like on their head, could somehow sort of feel what it was like to have that holographic experience. And I started thinking about 3D projection and like, what would you have to do? And then I thought, no, okay, I'm going to back off of that. I'm just going to imagine that we sort of miniaturize holographic technology, so it's in glasses or contacts or like, but everybody can basically see holograms that are public, right? That are published. So like super interesting to think about what happens when you decide to share one of your holograms. So like let's say it's like, you know, Dwayne is standing here, like holographic Dwayne is like always standing there, and you like walk up and you can interact with Dwayne, whether he's here or not. You know, like, so what if we start leaving holograms around? Like, what if I can see what you're doing with your holograms? Like, would that affect you? Would it affect me? Like what does that happen? So for me, it's kind of fun. Like there's a woman, you know, it's like walking through the lobby, minding her own business, and there's this like dancing thing, right? And the DJ from Brooklyn is like spinning and having a great time. And like, why can't we energize spaces with these holographic experiences? And of course you say, Mike, of course we can. Like we should be doing this. And I agree. But what does that look like? And what does it feel like? And how do people play into all this? So that's like sort of, I did a whole series that you can find online. I published it on my website or on Medium. But this is like a whole bunch of explorations about what does it feel like to be around holograms? Like, what's the experience feel like? And so my talk tonight is really about how could you do this quickly, right? Cheaply and quickly. Is that interesting at all? Okay, great. This was something else that I did recently. I work with data quite a bit. I actually love data visualization. I'm sort of in the visualization community, I guess you would say. And I used to work on data center visualizations. And so I thought, this is actually like, this is data that we're looking at right now. So I thought, how come, It kind of looks like servers to me too, right? Like server racks, kind of, sort of. So I was thinking, okay, like why can't we depict server racks as like kind of data like this? Like what would that mean? What would it mean to be in the data? And as you all know very well, when you're working with holographic, environments, holographic experiences, when you can make things real life size, room scale, it's a whole different deal. So imagine being able to put yourself into a data set and explore. Like, so to me, I don't know, super interesting to you. You might think, oh, it's like ridiculous, stupid, like why would you ever want to do that? But that made me sort of think about, how do you envision, right? How do you envision these things? I mean, can I just ask, how do you guys envision your stuff? Like, if you're starting a new project, what do you do? Sketch is great. What else do you do? Anybody go right to Unity? Why not? That's an awesome thing to do. It's like crack up in Unity. Just like jump right in, like start throwing circles and boxes down. Like that's rapid prototyping, right? So as a designer, you know how there's different types of design, right? There's like very high fidelity design, sort of looks like finished work. There's like very super sketchy. There's like wireframey, medium fi. I actually sometimes like love jumping right to hi-fi because I wanna actually sort of see and feel what it's going to be like. But a lot of times you just need to go faster because you're collaborating with somebody. You want to just see like, is this like crazy? Like what can I do? So I sort of came up with these three things for me that were important guides for what I need to do for myself when I'm creating these things. And any designer, and like designers, please back me up here. It's like know your audience, like speakers, designers, like it's all the same, right? You have to know who's going to be interacting with this. You have to know who you're talking to. You have to know like what do they feel about this? What do they think about this? The second thing is the medium. And when I talk about medium, what I mean is the way that it's communicated, right? It's not the hardware, it's not the technology, it's not the community built around it. It's like, how does it actually feel to communicate in this way? And again, I'm fascinated by communication, so like this is very important to me. And then the palette, right? So like the artist palettes. What do you have to work with? Like what are all the different things that you get to work with to do this? Okay, so this is good. I didn't lose you guys yet, right? You're like, where's the pizza, right? Tell the truth. Okay, so number one, know your audience. So if I was designing a holographic experience for you, knowing what I know about you, which is very little, I'll just say like, we don't, a lot of us don't know each other, but I know you're here because you told me. You're here because you're interested in holographic experience, holographic technology, or you just want to see what it's all about. So I know that that's sort of a great starting point. So if I was going to design something for this room right now, I would say to sort of like generalize what I would be seeing is something like this, right? A person who's like very engaged and happy to be, wallowing in this experience and sort of like generally amazed by the whole thing. Is that fair to say? Like pretty positive, right? Upbeat, right? Like exploring. We know as designers and marketing people that is completely wrong, right? This is not who you're designing for. And you know how designers say, you never design for yourself? Well, like that's bullshit too. You are actually designing for yourself. It's like secret, but it's true. But we all know that this is not like this. This is like a fantastic person to design for. We want to make sure that like she has the best experience possible. But I found it's sort of more like that, right? It's like all different kinds of people with all kinds of weird stuff going on. Like you have no idea like what they're experiencing. So we as designers and visionaries, we have to understand the people part, and a lot of the people part, frankly, is the emotional aspect, right? I'm not just saying like, oh, you like burst into like laughter, or you don't have to think of it that way. You can think of it a little bit different. So, for example, if we sort of go back to our diagram of the audience, what do you think that particular person's thinking about this holographic experience? Right, they're very confused, right? So do you ever think about people being confused when you design your stuff? Maybe not. Maybe you should. Okay. Being confused, usually not good. How about that guy? Is he happy about this whole holographic thing? I don't know. He looks like he's a little afraid of what's going on in front of him, right? Maybe not so good either. And then my favorite, he doesn't really look like he's having a good time or she's having a good time either, right? Maybe they're like a little panicked. And you're thinking to yourself, Mike, like you're really stretching it here. Like people don't act like that when they put a HoloLens on. But you know what? You don't know that, right? You don't know that they don't feel that they're confused because they don't quite get it. Like, how come when I move my head that way, I don't see it anymore? And how come I don't know how to interact with it? All right. So you're saying, okay, Mike, I got it, right? Think about people. It doesn't stop there, right? Every aspect of what we're doing with holograms is going to be applied to some very interesting situation, right? I hate you. I hate you, Dwayne. Okay. So the first thing is, just imagine this, right? So when we're designing, these are all like very well-known situations, right? You're using the HoloLens or any holographic device that may come out in the future at home. So what do you think about the people part of this? Anybody? Anybody? Right. You can do whatever you want. Like you're at home, right? You can be comfortable. You don't have to worry about what people think. You don't have to worry about being wrong so much. You don't have to worry about being embarrassed or confused about the experience because you're at home, right? You can relax. You can have fun. You can explore. Like who cares? So this is a great thing, right, for us to know is that when people are using this device or these devices, they're experiencing stuff at home. They're very relaxed. It's all good. Now you sort of put them at work. Okay, so now how does the people part of the equation change when somebody's using this device at work? Anybody? Sorry? Right, don't F it up, right. So they're probably a little, maybe a little self-conscious, right? Like don't want to make any mistakes. Somebody, I think here, in one of the talks like several months ago, somebody made this great analogy that when we see people wearing welding helmets at work, we don't think a thing about it, right? Doesn't even faze you. Like you see somebody wearing like a welder's helmet, like whatever, right? They're a welder. Of course they're wearing a welder's helmet. That's sort of what's going to happen with HoloLens and holographic hardware over time. Is that eventually it'll get to the point where it's a bit more normal and people won't, feel so weird about wearing it. They won't feel so weird about seeing it. But even if you're not wearing this and I am, like I'm feeling something about you, you're feeling something about me. So like this is important stuff, right? Like you have to, as a designer, as an envisioneer, you have to think about this kind of stuff. At the club, right? So now we're into the social aspect, right? So is it cool to wear your HoloLens at the club? I don't know, like maybe. It's like I don't know, like if she was dancing with the HoloLens on, like that would be pretty cool. If I could see that at the club, like that would be pretty cool. I could like that, right? That's cool. But what do you think about the social aspect of it, right? Like it sort of has to be socially accepted, or you have to be a trendsetter and be like comfortable with whatever people say, right? Like okay, but I think that's pretty cool. You've all seen this, right? When you're doing research, this is sort of like the welder's mask analogy. Like you're doing a very specific task. People sort of cut you some slack. Oh yeah, he's wearing that thing. He's doing his work, right? Great. So does that make you more comfortable? Does that make the people part of this whole thing a little bit easier to deal with? Probably, right? Because you're doing a very specific task with a tool that people socially and in a business environment accept, right? So awesome. When you're learning, right? If you were at school, if you were either like in school, like elementary school, I don't know, high school, you're at college, you're in medical school, and you're all sort of participating in the same thing, you're going to think, oh, this is socially acceptable. It's all good. Whatever experiences, however I'm moving, right? However okay, everybody has tried a HoloLens here, right? Okay, right, pretty much? Okay. How many of you have been crawling around on the floor with the HoloLens on, right? Right? It's like, okay, do you think that it would be cool to be crawling around on the floor with like a bunch of people that you're going to school with? Right? Maybe, I don't know. But there's a bunch of new interactions, like new experiences with this new opportunity. And we just have to keep it in mind. You don't have to shy away from it. You don't have to be afraid of it. Just know. And then like when you're with your friends, the same thing. Like it could be like really fun, right? Like you're with your friends, you're sort of doing your thing. There's also to me, two major kinds of interaction with holograms. There's the tabletop, like tabletop computing is great. There's a lot of, like this is pretty fun, like playing games, doing business visualization, whatever. But when you get into room scale is when the fun starts. And for me, the room scale stuff is really the most interesting. And if I was gonna, just, not that it's my place to give you advice about this stuff, but man, like figure out how to design for life-size room scale, because that's where it makes a complete difference, right? HoloLens is really, like, pardon the bad pun, it's eye-opening, right? When you are actually interacting with something that is life-size, full scale, as opposed to something that sits on top of my desktop, right? Okay. The other big thing, so because this is a whole new platform, because it's an opportunity for us to sort of redefine or invent or figure out a path forward, we have to try to be much more inclusive than we have been as an industry in the past. And I can, I've been in the industry, high tech, for a very long time, and I can tell you, being inclusive, designing for everybody has not always been the very first thing that people have done in the past. Our tool sets are getting better, our awareness is certainly higher, and I think we all have a responsibility to design for everybody. We have to design these holographic experiences so that anybody and everybody can enjoy them, or get use out of them, or find something new to sort of fill their time. So Microsoft has done some really great work with inclusion. We actually take diversity, inclusion, and designing universally very, very seriously, and we are trying to get it to be like more of a first thought rather than a, like an end thing that I have to take care of. And so I would just ask you, when you're designing your experiences, when you're trying to figure out your next big thing, please try to figure out if it could be for anybody and everybody, right? It's more difficult than it sounds, but it's super rewarding when you get it right. So now, okay, are you still with me? Because I kind of want the pizza, to tell you the truth. But I'm going to try to hang in there for a little while longer. Dwayne promised me. So, so when I say know your medium, right? So if you're in the business of communicating professionally, right, you know that there's different mediums. There's different ways of expressing yourself. That piece of hardware is not the medium, right? That's a piece of hardware. Right, the medium is all of the tools, all the approaches, all of the things that you bring to bear to get your message across, whether it's to be clear, to be impactful, to be funny, to be entertaining. The medium is it's like the transport mechanism to get that message out to people. So any good designer will tell you, you have to understand your medium in order to do a great job and really, sort of put it where it needs to be. And so for me, I'm thinking, okay, great. This is a new platform, it's a new experience, it's a new medium, it's a whole way new way of doing stuff. So where can we find inspiration for something completely and totally new? Anybody? Exactly, right? You go Back to the Future, right? Because anybody that gets to wear double ties is having a good time, right? So there's, this is a very funny picture, very prescient, right? There's not a lot of difference between what you're looking at there and like what a lot of people are doing in their kitchens right now, right, with HoloLens or VR or anything else. There's something very very funny and odd and not quite comfortable about this picture, right? And so we're sort of there. And there was, again, at the talk that happened here about 4 months ago, this engineer from Microsoft, whose name was Anatoly, I think, was talking about how we're sort of we're not in the text only, like the WAP phone, like the flip phone. We're not at the flip phone part, but we're not all the way to the iPhone yet either, right? We're somewhere in the middle of those two. And then there's the I don't even need a phone because I just talk it to the air and stuff happens. So we're kind of at the beginning of this. And so you'll notice for a breakthrough experience, that's not, that's cool, it's not breakthrough. When we think about breakthrough, it's usually something like this, right? It's like Tony Stark can just say whatever he wants and all of his tools come to bear and they do whatever he wants them to do. That's a lot of people's idea of a breakthrough holographic experience. Now you'll notice Tony is not wearing a headset, right? And he's probably not wearing contact lenses that help him at all. This is some kind of holographic projection that we haven't even gotten to yet. But the fact is, he's able to naturally sort of have this thing do what he needs it to do, whether it's, a tool or it's someone to interact with or have fun with. So, when you think about your experiences, think like all the way to the optimal, right? When you're envisioning, think all the way to like no barriers. Let me just figure out the right way to do whatever I'm trying to do, and don't let people stand in the way. The other thing I've got to tell you, because I sort of had to learn this the hard way. You guys know that these holograms are not real, right? Right? Like that they're not real, right? Okay. Because I was just checking. Because like a lot of times I see stuff like this and I'm thinking, okay, like, so I know that you're really excited that Russell Wilson is in your living room, right? But he's not really there. But some people get, I don't know, it's very natural for me when I'm, in the rig and I'm doing stuff, I feel like these things are real. And so there's a great illusion happening. It's like your brain, like many people have talked about this, your brain sort of like locks in, and all of a sudden you're sort of filled with joy because you feel like, wow, this is getting real, and I'm doing something that I was not able to do before. There's something else that happens with illusion, and I'm just going to just go back for a moment. Are you all familiar with David Blaine, the magician? Like most of you, know who David Blaine is. Fantastic, super talented. Started out as a street musician, I think, in New York City. But when you watch David Blaine do like simple card tricks or like other tricks, his tricks are amazing. Like he does stuff that people it just blows their mind. But it's the reaction of the people watching him that is the most entertaining thing. There's the illusion that he creates. Because I don't really think it's magic. I'm not positive. I don't think it's magic. But the excitement, the just people just can't stand it. They're just so blown away. And I wish that all of us could experience that with the things that we do, right, with our experiences. So think about that too. Think about, could you actually bring somebody so much, just like you just completely blow them away. Because like that's a great thing to do when you're envisioning. So again, there's another part to this, which is the stagecraft, right? So in a holographic experience, for now, you're going to be wearing some kind of hardware. You're going to be in an environment where like maybe people are looking at you, maybe they're not. But you know what? Nobody can see what you're seeing unless, like let's say you're wearing a VR rig and you're like hooked up to a screen and like people are watching what you're doing on the screen. For the most part, you're in your own little world, right? Unless you're doing a shared experience. Something very different happens though in all these photographs and videos of people doing demos, is that like somehow magically you can see the holograms that they're seeing. Right? Do you know how they do this, right? There's a guy with a camera rig, very expensive camera rig, and a very high powered computer that does real-time compositing, right? So that you see Alex Kipman with all of his holograms, but really it's just like Alex is standing there by himself, right? It's like kind of goofy looking when you see somebody doing that. But it's awesome that I can see all the holograms with him. So there's I guess you would say, a required amount of stagecraft right now for us to be able to see other people's holograms. That's changing very quickly. You probably have all seen some videos that have been out using like the HTC Vive and the Oculus Rift. They're using green screens and they're doing like fairly low cost, like real-time compositing. So I can actually see what people are doing in their virtual environment. And so you can do this with mixed reality too, so you can sort of see this thing. But we should think about when we're envisioning your experience, how can I help people see what I'm seeing, right? And that's sort of like where I went right away, is I wanted you to see what I was seeing with my HoloLens or other holographic device on. And the third thing, if you're going to envision and you're a designer or a coder, you got to know your palette. So my friends over at 8/9 did this like great taxonomy of all the different elements that you should very much make yourself familiar with if you're not already. They cover the space, the sound. Now, I sort of have my own way of looking at it. So for me, again, like people, right? People's number one. You got to understand what's going on with the people, the space itself, the holograms, interaction, sound, and of course, you have to understand the tech, I think, if you're going to really do a great job. And we could argue about that. But let's just sort of go back to people, right? So we're good on the people, right? We covered that. We got it. You got to understand what people are feeling. It's about how people feel that makes a great experience. So let's talk about the space. That's the other thing. There's a great article that came out in the last few days on Microsoft Design, right, David? Microsoft Design channel on Medium about designing for mixed reality. And it was very, very well put about how when you first start designing for mixed reality, you really do have to understand your physical space, right? It's like, do I have a lot of room? Am I going to like bump into the camera? Am I going to bump into the couch? Am I going to, because I'm actually immersed in this, am I going to like fall down the stairs? You sort of really have to think about the space aspect of it. And I can't emphasize enough for myself, the space has a lot to do with how I think the experience is going to play out. So like, remember that like dancing, like glass monster thing, right? You could put that here. Like, there's a lot of space here. That would be awesome. Could you fit that in your bathroom? I don't know. Maybe. Would it fit in the car? Not that you're supposed to be driving with your HoloLens right now, but so you have to think about space, how to interact with it. So there's been a lot written about that. I'm not going to go into it, but space is super important when you're thinking about envisioning the experience. And there's like the actual holograms themselves, right? So these things are super interesting. They can be as simple as something that's like a flat shaded block, all the way to something that looks photoreal and is moving and talking, and you would swear was real, right? Because it's actually drawn fairly opaque as much as it could be. So there's like super high quality holograms, and there's like sort of like cut rate, just getting it done kind of holograms. Again, when you're envisioning, I would ask you to think about going to the like super high quality. Even though we know like cost time and money and be a little more difficult, you're going to get such a better experience by trying to go for the optimal in your experience, right? Like do something that is unexpected, do something that's super high quality, and not just settle for something simple. And then it's amazing with interaction. Nobody really thinks about voice as the primary interaction, but I got to tell you, like we're all friends. I'm just being honest. I got super frustrated with the gesturing, right? Like using my hands to control things in the HoloLens at first, and so I wanted to talk to it, so I did. I started talking to it, and I was much happier, right? I mean, it can do amazing things. Like the voice is a very underappreciated interaction and input mechanism for HoloLens. So I would ask you to think about using voice, because voice is very natural. Like we're people, like we talk to each other, right? So could you actually use voice as one of your primary ways of doing this, rather than relying on hand gestures? Now, there's no question the hand gestures will get better over time, right? Like you look at the Kinect technology, right? Previous thing that Alex Kipman and team worked on. They actually came out with this fantastic custom gesture toolkit, so you can extend that technology. I'm sure someday in the future that would happen, so we would have a richer vocabulary of interactions. But I do think that as far as whether it's augmenting it with haptics or controllers or like other things, the input and the interaction part of the experience will get a lot richer than it is now. And that's your job to push. Like, why can't we all sort of push to help that go forward? It's also like really amazing what you find on the internet. I have no idea who drew this, but I thought it was like super interesting. Sound, again, we had a great talk on sound. That was Joe Kelly. Was that last month, 2 months ago? Last month. You guys should go back and watch these talk videos if you weren't here. Sound, again, super underutilized, understood, and I would say not well thought about from a design perspective. People who work in the game industry will tell you that sound makes or breaks, games and movies. It is absolutely critical. And so like, I'm as guilty as anybody else of not integrating sound design well enough, early enough into the stuff that I'm doing. And so again, I would just sort of ask you, please think about how to use sound as one of the primary means of signaling, right, and having the experience be more fun. Because you're definitely going to have a better experience if you get the sound right. There's just absolutely no question. And then you just can't get away from the tech, right? If you know how to code, that's great. If you don't know how to code, that's okay. But learn about it. Ask somebody. Like, could you please show me what you're doing? Like, if you know somebody who's a developer, could you just like show me like why are you doing it this way? And like, how does that work? I think it's super important for designers, for creative people, for writers, for anybody who's involved with projects like this to have some degree of knowledge about how these things are actually built. And the reason is you can make better decisions, right? You sort of have to balance your like right brain, left brain, your creative side with your like more logical and a little more pragmatic side, because you are going to have to sort of figure out what's possible and what's possible in the best way. And I'm all for being an uncompromising designer, God knows I am, but when it comes down to actually getting something in the hands of real people, you're going to have to know a little bit about what is actually possible, and sometimes, you know, maybe make a couple different choices. So for anybody, I would just encourage you, like, just understand what it takes to actually build these experiences, because it's going to help you envision. It's going to sort of like a little, you know, voice will show up in your head when you're working on that next envisioning project. Okay, so for me, this is all like, you know, like the preamble. So like, let's get to the important part, right? How do you actually envision your projects? Like I heard earlier, like sketching is a great way to do it. I do rapid prototyping sometimes. But for you, I would hope that you all just sort of imagine, right? I think it's difficult sometimes to start with imagination. Like, you know, I told you, I have this, you know, terrible problem where I see holograms, right, where there's no holograms. So like my imagination is probably working too much. But a lot of people they don't sit and visualize as much as they sketch or talk or code or, you know, do some other mechanism to get their ideas out. But I think that there's a lot of value in you just like finding a quiet place and sitting and thinking and trying to visualize in your own mind, what is this experience going to be like? Sometimes, you know, for me, it just sort of flashes, like I'm somewhere and I'm like, oh, okay, well, of course, that's what you would do in this kind of a space, or that's what you would do in this situation. But using your imagination is, I think, the best place to start, right? And even before you start going into detailed sketching or modeling or like telling somebody how, you know, how it's going to work. The other interesting part of this for me is you cannot get away from acting out exactly how this is going to work, right? Because you can't just sort of think and the thing just shows up, right? It just like doesn't work that way. So a lot of times this is where it's like, it's funny, I was telling you, I'm like, you know, crawling around on the floor, like looking down in the hole, right? It's like, oh, like the Hololens made this hole. I'm like, you actually have to do that, right? You have to be willing when you're working by yourself or with your team or like working, you know, with people on a whole different continent. The act is really important. You have to act out how people are going to be experiencing this thing, and you just, you know, it's kind of funny. That's why I brought this to show you. One of the best things that you could possibly do is get a bunch of tripods, right? Set them up in your space, like tape stuff to them, right? Like tape, you know, in that article, stuffed animals, tape, you know, cardboard, tape, anything to these things and move them around so that you can actually sort of approximate what the experience might be like before you spend a bunch of time prototyping it or actually coding it, because it's that acting. This is a very physical, right? Very physical medium that we're working in. And again, if you don't do this, you're going to be surprised. Like, you don't have to do. Like, don't listen to me. There's a lot of things that you can do without physically acting out what happens. You can just like go from idea to coding to put the lens on, and you're like, oh, so that's what that is. Okay, great. But I would just encourage you, like, try to act with your, you know, like with the team that you're collaborating with, because you're going to make so much more progress. Sketching is fantastic. I think that if you can do like a super quick sketch, and we're going to do some of that tonight, you're going to be much further ahead than if you just try to explain to somebody. If you're very articulate and you're very good with visual language, then you can probably explain to someone what the experience would be like. But, you know, as they say, picture's worth 1,000 words, right? So just do it quickly. And then, of course, visualizing. So we're going to get to that. And then I can't tell you how fun it is to do rapid prototyping of your ideas. So if it's not something that you do now, I would love to talk to you about how to do that. And so I'm just going to spend a few minutes on it tonight. But let's go back to how I did some of the stuff that I showed you. All right? Because like this is sort of what I have to share with you tonight. So some people, this is Galaxy Explorer, right? Most of you have seen this, right? There's a HoloLens experience. I think, pretty sure this is Galaxy Explorer. There's an experience where you put the lens on and you basically get to see the solar system and, you know, and space and different planets. This is a very well done sketch, right? It's actually a super high quality sketch from a design standpoint. If we were going to critique this, probably took, you know, a while. This actually looks like maybe it was done in SketchUp, or like they actually, you know how to draw really well in perspective. This is a very time intensive sketch, right? This did not take like 15 seconds to do, right? It's pretty apparent. Is there something wrong with that? No. Is it how I would approach envisioning? No. right? I wouldn't start there at all. I would use something that I call fast design, which is basically just going as quickly as you can to get to a point that is good enough to be able to either make a decision, show somebody what's going on, or actually finish it and move on, right? So we use fast design in the garage all the time because like we turn out a ton of different design projects. And so I just want to share a little bit of that with you tonight. So my technique is something I call film on location, right? So I told you, like I walk around and I see like an interesting area, like that table is empty, right? You see like the little white table over there with the chairs, right? It's like there's no holograms over there, but I could easily like grab my phone and take a picture of it, and I would have some place to start. So I end up doing this quite a bit. So I'll be in like different random places, and like people think I'm a little weird, but I'm taking pictures of like empty spots. And this becomes my super fast design way to get to that sketch, right? Because all of a sudden, I've got this, this like empty spot that I can start filling in with ideas or filling in with models or sketches or whatever. And so this was in the Microsoft office in Vancouver, BC. They built this beautiful, like brand new office, but it was like really odd as I was walking around. There was these like empty, like empty places. I figured, well, what goes there? Like, is that for artwork? Is it for trophies? Is it like a penalty box? They're like into hockey up there. Is it like you got to stand on the penalty box? I don't know. But I thought it was like a really intriguing thing to explore, right? Like I'm envisioning, I'm exploring, like what could go in there. The next thing that I do, so once I have sort of a start, I start to think, okay, how can I put myself in that position? This is where I start like acting stuff out. This is where I start like, moving my tripods around. It's where I start taping stuff up, where I start, like drawing a few sketches. But I have to understand what I'm expecting other people to do and to experience. And that's where that like empathy and all the stuff we talked about, with the audience, that's where that all comes in. So for me, the first thing that I thought of, like the very first thing when I saw those like empty spaces was artwork, right? It's like, well, of course there's got to be some kind of statues or artwork that go in there, right? Because they're kind of weird if that's not what was going to be there. So I happened to be in New York the week after that, so I went to MoMA, right? And I was like cruised around in MoMA, and what I saw was, this like really not, of course there's beautiful artwork there, but it's interesting how people and groups interact with artwork, right? And like you can see, I'm sure that this woman's explaining something really important about this, and they're like, okay, whatever, it's almost lunchtime. This is awesome. So for me, it was not really so much about the artwork. It was about the experience of experiencing artwork. I was trying to learn how do people experience artwork and what would be interesting or new. Like what could we bring that's different and better to experiencing artwork? So that was the important thing. So in this technique, I took a picture. I'm trying to understand, like, okay, like, because I had a flash, so I thought, like, artwork, I'm sort of, like, understanding, okay, like, what's this going to be like? And then, we all know, like, when you're designing something, there's generally a hero, right? This term, like, is a design term for a very significant element or something that really grabs your attention or something that's, like, literally is the hero of this particular scene or experience. And so when you think about what is really the hero of some of these holographic experiences? For me, I was thinking, well, there's probably like some kind of a painting here, right? So let's see if we'll just try to do like a quick sketch here. How about that? So for me, I was kind of thinking, yeah, it's like something like this, right? It was like painting person. There's probably like the titles here and maybe a little bit of information. And there's two of these things, so like there's probably something over here too, right? It's like some other painting and like some kind of title. And then I thought to myself, okay, well that's kind of simple, right? For like a hologram, that's like, so what? Like whatever, you put a statue there, put a painting there. And then I thought more about the hero, right? So the hero of the space is the painting or the piece of sculpture. So how can I bring that to life? How can I make that better? And so your first thought is what? Like, how do you bring a painting to life? Animate it? Go ahead. Right. How about being able to talk to the artist? That'd be kind of cool, right? Okay. So, it's like here's an artist, right? It's like hanging out. It's gonna like tell you all about this painting, like what she was thinking when she was making the painting, right? So what else could you do with the painting? You could sort of tell the backstory, perhaps. I don't know. It's like every painting, like maybe there's some like really weird story that went along with like why this piece of sculpture was created, or so I thought, okay, maybe this is holograms, right? They can go anywhere. And then again, from the experience standpoint, why would I ever put just one piece of artwork somewhere when we're dealing with holograms, right, and virtual? Maybe there's a way that I can sort of like change it. Like, can I change what I'm looking at? Because it's not really there, right? It's like, why not? So guess what? Maybe we add like some way to like swap out the artwork. So from that, I started to think about the painting or the sculpture or the piece of artwork as the hero, right? So I'm thinking like, how can I make the hero experience like super fun for people and much better than what was there before? Same thing happened when I was walking through this lobby, right? It's like this thing needs a hero. It's like calling out. It's like it's a beautiful lobby, but it's like it's just missing everything. So my hero was this like dancing hologram thing, right? And so you put the dancing hologram in your digital fireplace, and like you're in a DJ from Brooklyn, and you're good, right? It's like much better experience. So the hero of this experience for me was like this dancing hologram, right? And so that is the kind of thing that I would hope you would think about when you're doing your envisioning, right? It's like what elements are really going to capture people's imagination, and then just go visualize it, right? And for me, again, I did a really super quick sketch. You have to have people. Remember we talked about this, right? You cannot get away from people. So you're going to have to, go find some good artwork or like invest a few dollars in buying some great vector artwork of people in all kinds of weird positions because, again, when you go back to a scene like this, you have to imagine how would the person be dealing with this, right? Like where are they standing, sitting, lying, running? Like what's going on here? And then in my technique, you go find the people, you like cut them out, and then you sort of place them in the scene. And I developed a visual language very much based on what I told you earlier from architecture, where for me, these silhouettes that are black are real people, right? They're opaque, you can't see through them. If I had a silhouette of a person that was blue, and this is a very common visual language thing, the blue sort of tends to be hologram, right? So opaque, real person, see-through hologram. And then I thought, okay, like, so there's a painting, right? So that's one of my sister's paintings. So I thought, okay, this is great. My sister Sharon, like, has all these great stories about, like, why she did these paintings and, like, what it means to her. So I thought, what can I do? Because remember, I thought, like, maybe the artist could tell me a story about this painting. So why don't I just stick my sister there so that you can actually ask her if she would just tell you, about the painting. Like, that'd be pretty cool. And I thought, okay, like, maybe she's, like, pacing back and forth, waiting for people to show up. There's all kinds of things. Like you can think of a million things of how to bring artwork to life in that fun way. And so there was a couple fine details when I was envisioning. So I'm thinking about the experience. So I want people to be able to see different kinds of artworks. That's where those little back and forward flippers came from, right? I want people to be able to zoom in and see the artwork because we all know from a technological standpoint, because we studied the technology in our palette, that you can't get too close to a hologram, right? Because it sort of fuzzes out, it's a little difficult to deal with. But I know this particular hero, this piece of artwork, has super fine detail. So Sharon would paint on top of maps, right? And so you can actually see, like something like this, like Manhattan, you can see parts of these maps through the artwork. So I need a way to have you experience the detail of this. And so I thought, okay, well, like, why don't we just use like a tried and true, selection rectangle of some sort so you can actually blow up this thing and see the detail. So you don't have to get so close that it becomes uncomfortable. All right, so I'm doing it like, this is quick. These are just like quick ideas. I'm not trying to design the perfect thing. I just wanted to get a better experience for that space that I saw that I wanted to fill. And so then the final piece sort of has all those things that I drew for you, right? It's got the hero painting. It's got a way to move between paintings. It's got, this person, this real person, being able to actually see the detail of this work, right? It has Sharon, like, I don't know if she's telling you the story or not, but there's a backstory here for you to look at or not. It's for you to experience. So that's, in essence, the heart of my technique for like trying to just go fast. I just want to get these ideas. I have a lot of these ideas. I have a ton of pictures that I want to visualize, but I can't do it if it takes forever, right? So that's where I started, and that's the finished piece. So does that seem like a fairly reasonable thing to do? Like, meaning like you could see yourself doing that maybe? Yes, no, like never? Like I'm never doing that? Guess what? Came to the wrong meeting. So we're going to do that. And then I have to tell you, there is nothing like seeing your vision come to life, right? So I could have easily, instead of doing all that sketching and figuring out on paper and digital like how to do this, I could have easily just jumped into Unity and just sort of prototyped this right away. I did actually, jump in because I think that rapid prototyping with or without interaction is just a good way to sort of get a feel, because you can get this onto the HoloLens, sort of feel like what is it really like to have this thing be room size. Some of the problems that I wanted to address were there's texture, right? Like there's texture in these paintings. It's a very it's a physical medium, right? When you paint, especially mixed media paintings. So knowing that you can't get too close to a hologram, how do I get that across? How does the feeling, how does the experience, holographic experience, sort of mimic what I was going for, which was sort of much more like the real world? Like you can notice, there's a little bit of thickness in the canvas. There's, some wood grain. There's like this, you can even see the paint strokes and things in these. So I'm thinking, okay, well, I need a pretty high resolution, again, this is on the technology side. How big of an image can I use? Right? How big can I get away with? How big can I show it? Can I blow this thing up so it's like as big as a building? I don't know. It'd be kind of cool, right? If you could actually see something that big. So in envisioning, right, in trying to figure out the right way to proceed, I jumped into the code, right, and did some 3D modeling just to try out a couple quick ideas so I would know where I stood. And then, like again, you sort of notice there's all these things. Like when you look at something at a very severe angle, it's distorted. Right? And every artist will tell you they hate when their work is distorted, right? It's like, please don't ever distort somebody's painting. They're like going to get you. But the fact is, you could do whatever you want. You can walk around the back of this. You can kneel down. You can like look down from the top. So how does that work? Like when you're trying to display something like this, you have to actually try this out, right? You got to do rapid prototyping and experience it. You can act it out, but until you actually are in the digital medium, right? When you're actually in the experience, you won't know that this is going to be a problem, right? To see things from these severe angles. And this is just, like me doing like a quick test just so I could see like, what is this really like, when I put this out. And of course, do this over and over and over until you get your idea good enough in your own mind or with the people who you collaborate with to actually go build it, right? Go do it. So that, in essence, that's how I do my version of like fast design, rapid prototyping. So what do you imagine would be in this space? Anybody know where this is? Right? It's inside the lobby in MoMA, right, in New York City, right, Museum of Modern Art. So what do you think would be here?
Ballerinas.
What's that?
Ballerinas.
Ballerinas, that's fantastic. What else? Whack-a-mole, I like that. I like that.
Some cartoon in the window.
I love that. I love that. So actually, I'm gonna do something here. You guys don't mind? Am I boring you? Is this okay? Is this at all interesting to you? You want to switch to the pizza eating part? No? Okay. All right. Let's do like a really quick demo, if you don't mind. Get my audio technician to help me here. All right. So we're gonna jump in, and I'm gonna show you what I thought about this. And so this is just one technique. And I was telling you, I tried to tell you in my description for this talk, you can do this digitally with very inexpensive or free tools, right? You don't have to use Photoshop or Illustrator or After Effects or Unity for that matter. There's a lot of things that you can do very, very quickly. So let's see. So I think that one was called Look Who's Here. All right. So so what do you see? You see the scene, right? Like this. Remember, this is the scene that we were just looking at in MoMA. So remember, I was telling you that when I see things that I want to take a picture of, I have an image almost right away of like where the people are and what they're doing. So for me, the thing that came to mind right away was there was somebody sitting on one of those little toadstool things, right? And there was like a family playing. Because that seemed like a very normal museum experience, right? It's like people are out, they're having a good time, they're like doing whatever they're doing. And for me, I thought, like, look at all that glass. Like, there's something awesome that you can do with that glass, right? And holograms. And the thing that sort of flashed for me was, why can't the kid be painting, right? Or like playing a game, or like doing something like playing with a giant dinosaur. Like, see this area back here? This is like sort of my favorite part. I actually originally thought there was like a giant T-Rex outside the glass. It was like about to scare the kid, right? And like maybe even come through the glass and like eat the kid. Like the kid would freak out and scream, "Ah! It's like the dinosaur ate me." Like, that's the kind of stuff that you can. I mean, you can have these thoughts and you can do these designs like very, very quickly. And this was not that hard to do. Like, the hardest part always is finding the person sitting in the right position. Or you get. I mean, the other technique that I like to use is you get somebody to sit in the position or stand in the position you want. Just take a picture and then just like make them into a silhouette. Right? Or use real people. My visual language is to use silhouettes. That's sort of how I'm trying to tell my story. But there's any number of ways that you can do this. So that's just sort of like a super quick example of how you can use like a digital, and it does not take a long time to do this. I mean, like we can. I was sort of hoping that we would just do this together. So, so what do you guys think? Are you up for doing something like that together? All right. So I have to tell you a secret. It's not going to be a very well kept secret after tonight, but Microsoft PowerPoint is the most powerful graphic prototyping tool.
Mike.
Come on, man. What am I paying you for, Dwayne? No, it's true. Okay, like I work at Microsoft. You're like, oh yeah, whatever, Mike. Like you work at Microsoft. No, it's like honest to God, it's true. You could do anything in PowerPoint. It has animation built in. It has like incredible artwork and icons and effects. And it's like I don't know. It's like pretty much free, kind of, depending. So this is my suggestion for you. Start using PowerPoint to prototype. Okay, so would you guys like to, do you have time, like can we just run through a design exercise really quick? Is that okay? Okay, all right, let's do it. So we need to get a scene, okay? And short of taking a picture of this scene, I'll just sort of pick one. Is that all right? Because I told you I have like a million pictures that I'm just not using for anything. So in PowerPoint, just go Insert Pictures, right? And let's go. I'm just going to go out and get my collection of pictures, and this is all like this. You're going to get a sneak peek at my next volume of things that I'm going to do for the Holoscenes project. So let's see. Any pictures in here that jump out at anybody? You see anything you like? Okay, I'll tell you what. Let's now we already did that one. Let's do like something pretty ordinary, like this. Even though I think this is like totally boring. Okay, because it's tabletop. Like tabletop has its place. Okay, what would go in the scene? Legos. Okay, you mean like Minecraft, like Lego kind of thing? Lego Legos. Okay. All right. Let's see. I don't know if I can draw on this. There must be a way to do this. Let's see. I'm gonna go full screen, and let's just draw on this really quick. Oop. Okay, so you're thinking that on this table is going to be like a bunch of Legos of some sort, right? So like, are they on one of those bases? And so what are the Legos in the shape of? Are they just like laying all over the table?
You can start, and then like if people can interact with it, they can add in different threads.
Oh, okay, I got you.
So like kids can interactively play with the Lego set.
Okay, I got you. So when I walk in this room and I'm wearing, some kind of holographic device that lets me see, what's going on, I see Legos sitting here on the table, right? That's great. Love that. Because it's something that people, it's like a natural attractor, right? The experience, again, remember the very beginning of this talk, I said, the stuff that you want to do in the holographic world, all those experiences are kind of based, you find a lot of answers in the real world. That's a very real world thing, right? Like who can resist walking up and playing around with Legos when they're just sitting out? Like almost nobody, right? Unless you like hate Legos, and then I don't know what to say. Okay, anything else? Is there a different experience that you can think of? What was that? Sandcastle, okay. All right, so look at that, right? Let's start over. You guys are getting the like cheap drawings here. So sandcastle, wow. Okay, that's gonna be like a little harder. Is this like a real sandcastle? Yeah. All All right, so you have like turrets here, right? You have to have the big like drawbridge moat thing going, right? And so does it always, let me ask you, does it always sit on the table? Did I draw this wrong? Should I put it on the floor? Should I put it on the seat? Floating on a cloud. All right. Tell me about the person or persons. Are they here? Is this just from my viewpoint? Is there somebody that's supposed to be in the scene that we're missing?
There can be people here, and those people need not be doing things that are just constrained to this. This would be extremely advantageous in those cases where it's, specifically you need to go to different places to experience. Like
Okay.
sand castles, you can only build in when you are near a seaside or something, and you can look at heavy machinery or things like that inside this. So it can be just a couple of students studying anatomy or how machines work or something like that in a very tight environment.
Okay. So if I understand right, you're saying that there was like two other people that were just sort of here doing something else, right?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So something like that, right?
Both of those are real.
Both of these, okay, great. So I should have drew them in my visual language. I would have drawn them as being opaque, and which is a little bit harder to do, but I get it. I mean, I could easily, just sort of like use the designer's quick notation of this is filled in. That means this is filled into a designer. Anything else in this scene? So what is exciting about a sandcastle in the middle of a table in somebody's conference room where they're like writing on the whiteboard, right? And they're like designing whatever it is.
Made of sand, and the table was actually in the ocean. That would be amazing.
Oh, okay, I got you. So there's actually like water here, right?
Yeah, water surrounding the table.
Oh, it's like running off the table like a waterfall, it's like making it like a big pool here on the floor, right? Oop, that was a mistake. I gotta erase that. Okay. Yeah, you know why you're loving it, because you don't have to clean up these puddles. So, I don't know, how long did that take? A minute, 30 seconds? Okay. So we did that pretty quickly, right? This is all digital. I could easily take a screenshot and mail this to you on your phone, and like we're in business, right? Like, this is our new project. We're making sandcastles with like water that runs onto the floor. Is that cool enough? Says the sound guy. Oh, sorry about that. So we did that in about a minute. Is that at all useful as a technique to you? Okay. So each of you can just like walk around, take a picture, right? Mail it to yourself or like get it off your phone somehow. Get it into you could print it out and you can draw on top of it. You can do it digitally. You can send it to your designer buddy, to do this for you. But this is a super fast way to start envisioning, right? So when I talk about envisioning, it's imagining, it's actually producing, but it's also sharing and talking about and collaborating and improving, right? Because now it's real, right? Now it's tangible. Now you and I can both see what we're talking about. Right? Instead of me just, as articulate or inarticulate as I may be, I can't possibly describe in words exactly what I was thinking in this way. So I don't know. This isn't the only way to do this. You can certainly do rapid prototyping, in Unity or like whatever in code or in After Effects for that matter. But I think that this is a very cheap and easy way to do this. So let's jump back in. I'm going to keep that because that's awesome. I like that. Thank you for helping me with that. All right, so let's wrap this up. So we did our exercise, right? We just did it. See, you didn't even know. That didn't even hurt, did it? No. But if I told you when you walked in here that we were going to do a design exercise, you probably would have walked right out. Right? Am I right? Yes. Okay. I know. You didn't have to tell me. So what's next? So we talked about a lot. I appreciate you sort of helping me to think through a couple of things. When I think about what's next for envisioning, right? How do you envision what is the next breakthrough holographic experience? One really easy place to look is here, right? Do you know what this is? This is what I talked about earlier. This is how people are capturing someone in a virtual reality world, right? So I can see what you are seeing and experiencing inside of a VR world because we're using a green screen technique and real-time compositing. This happens to be using the HTC Vive. You can see the tether and the Vive headset. but it's not about the technology. This is a great technique to be able to see what it's going to feel like. Just like you could do this with mixed reality just as easily. There's techniques to do this. But the thing that I look to, what's the most important about this picture for me, is it's a kid. It's a kid playing and having a fantastic time in a completely new experience that they could care less whether it's from HTC or Microsoft or Magic Leap, like could care less. They're having a great time. And the things when you watch kids learn and you watch them play and you talk to them about what they're doing, it's like the technology is non-existent, right? It's about the thing. It's about the act. It's about the imagination. It's about the fun. It's about the thrill of doing something that maybe they never had a chance to do before. So if you're trying to figure out what to do with your next great idea or your project, go find a kid, right? And do, like, remember we talked about that acting and like trying stuff out? Do it with them, because man, you're going to learn a lot about how to improve your experiences. And frankly, if you don't listen to the kid, you're doing something wrong. I can tell you. And then for me, I'll be around. I'll be happy to, I'm happy to brainstorm with you guys. I'm happy to show you how to do things. Like whatever I can share back with this community, I'm happy to do, because I've learned so much myself from coming here and listening to other people talk about development and sound and the design aspects of things, that I would like to keep continuing to have this conversation. So thank you. Thank you for being patient with me. Thank you for sort of doing the exercise with me. And if you want to get in touch, this is how you can get in touch with me. I'll be around, and I'll hang out, because I think there's pizza here now. I can sort of smell it, right? But thank you very much. I appreciate it. Here you go, sound guy.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mike. I really appreciate that. That was a great talk. Before.
Was it really though? And I'm being totally honest. Was it, because this is the first time I did this particular talk, was it worthwhile?
Was it a great talk, folks?
Yeah, thank you. There's free pizza for all.
Yeah, we've got gifts. So before I talk about some of these other issues, there are two members here tonight that also wanted to share a couple of quick things with you. Carl has mentioned that he's been doing some job hunting, and one of the things that he's come across on the Microsoft campus is that there are a lot of HoloLens FTE roles open. Carl, do you want to say a couple quick words?
Yeah, I was just going to mention I had an informational interview for a senior program management role on Monday that was a little bit more technical than my background. But the person I spoke with mentioned they're hiring multiple program managers for the holographic team. So if you're interested, come talk to me afterwards. If you would like to give me a resume to forward on to the hiring manager, I can do that. Also, a different recruiter reached out to me about two positions with Verizon's Innovation Lab, which is more like visual engineer type of roles. So it's going to be highly specialized for people who have done research with the various technologies for I guess working with the graphic processing units, things like that. But I have both job descriptions with me if you want to take a look at, and if it's something you're interested, happy to pass the information on.
Cool. Great, thanks. And is it Zinli? I'm sorry, I can't pronounce your name. Where are you sitting? There you are. I mentioned in the past that Bellevue was doing some new work in creating some workshops and a new course catalog all along the lines of the technology we're dabbling in. And here's a little bit more information about what they're doing there.
Great, thank you. I just want you guys to know there's a course in the Bible College, which is like it's a fully AR/VR development course, and the class will be provided with like a Hololens for groups, and it's for developers who wants to, for normal developers and wants to get into the AR/VR territory, and I think it will be an amazing trip. So I have a bunch of cards for the more information. I will leave it on the table, so anyone or you have friends are interested in taking the classes, so feel free to let me know. Thank you.
Thank you. And as of with all meetings, if you have content, either quick and dirty content like that, or if you want to share stuff about the projects that you're working on, please approach me. We like to have member segments in each month, so I welcome opportunities to have you guys participate in future meetings up here and share the mic. I'll chase you around with the microphone. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about our sponsors and some of the stuff that are important to know about being a member of this group. We have a member discount page. It's a member-only page that you can access off of our site. And if you go check out there, we've now added a new sponsor as of this month. O'Reilly has come on board. They provide book discounts on both ebooks, print, as well as they have conferences that they put on. And they also have some interesting video content that I think falls under their ebook category to check out. So do check out this page. And one really good reason to go check out that page is our holiday surprise. O'Reilly, who's just come on, has been really generous. I gave them a list of different books that I found in like 2 minutes quick out of their catalog that I thought might be of interest to our group. And I said, you know, it'd be great if you want to participate in door prizes or something. Well, instead, what they did is they said, here, we created a special page for you guys. Any of your members, not just the door prize winners, anybody at all can hit this page that's a WinHUGR member, pick one book or one of the video topics, and basically you get a free copy of that. So happy holidays. And that link is, like I said, off of the member discounts page that you can go to. Thank O'Reilly. So on that note, we have a lot of sponsors that help make these meetings happen each month and to provide swag and to provide pizza. Unity and Microsoft both help us out. Orange Studios, the space that you're in, provides this facility. They're also a very interesting collaborative workspace, and we often have coupons up front. If you wanted a free day pass, come check out their space. If you're looking for a place for meetings, for holding you know, some of the business activities that you might want to do during the day. Route 3 has been covering our pizza for a number of months, and we really appreciate that. Leap Motion, Wiley, Manning, Pearson are all providing us door prizes. Indigo Slate has helped us with t-shirts and conference support that we did, and our fancy signs that we had at our recent conference. So on that note, let's give away some stuff. 1 second. Grab my stuff. Okay, Mike, I do need your assistance one more time. We've got... Am I eligible to win? You're not. You're the one guy in the room, besides myself, that isn't in the box. Okay. So just so you know what we're drawing, we're starting off with some ebooks. There are 2 ebooks up here that that are suggestions from Manning. Manning makes a couple suggestions here, but you can go off into their catalog and take a substitute out of their catalog of your choosing. So the first ebook is going to go to... I'm sure I'm not eligible. Okay. To the magic number of...
6766743.
Or the last 4 digits
43.
are 6743.
743. There's a
Yay.
smiling person. All right.
So I'll ask, congrats. Come on up. Anybody who...
We gotta check your number. Come on.
No, we trust you, but we do need you to share some information with us so you can get that ebook. And before you do that, pick our next ebook winner.
All right. Do I get to read it as well?
Sure. Just the last
Okay.
4 is good.
All right. 6747.
6747. Cool. Here, we got another winner. Great. Thank you. Thank you, Paul. And our next item up is a augmented reality book from Pearson. please. Yep, just pull one out. And the last 4 digits are 6763. 6763. Cool. Congratulations. Guys are really getting into it tonight. And there is a practical augmented reality book as well.
6744.
6744. You will after you. Okay, and then we have another physical. So those last 2 were physical books. We have one more physical book from Wiley, and because we had a design talk, we are giving away a classic. It's an Alan Cooper book called About Face. And
Alan Cooper hired me one day, but he didn't want to pay me enough. So.
and the Alan Cooper book goes to 6765. 6765. Congrats. Thank you. And then we have one last item, which is kind of like our grand prize. Leap Motion has been really great about supporting us month after month, and they've just sent we've used up all of the Leap Motion devices they sent us for the first phase. They just sent us a new box full to last us for a few more months. So we have a Leap Motion sensor and connector. And what's also very exciting about this particular door prize, I don't know if you caught it, out of the many thousands of cool things that are going on in our space right now, Leap Motion this month also announced that they're redirecting their business to VR and AR headsets, and they're putting really concerted effort into this space. So I would bet that you'll see some of these new devices coming out from Windows Holographic with some of these Leap Motion detectors that will allow you to do some really cool finger detection and gesture recognition. So, did somebody draw that one? Oops, somebody got away on me. Who was the last winner? Who won the Cooper book? Did you draw? I don't think you did you? I need you to pull a number. I got rambling, sorry, that was my fault. There we go, and the 4 digits are 6738. 6738. Hey, congrats. All right. So, on that note, that's the end of my slides. Pizza. We do have a couple HoloLens devices here. If anybody hasn't had a chance to have an experience or they want to check something out, you're welcome to come up here. Mingle. We've got about an hour before they're going to kick us out of the place. There's a lot of interesting people in the audience and a lot of cool information you can learn from them. So enjoy the pizza and drinks at the back.